inclusion and atonement, for the fight for social justice and equity started well before today, even before our nation had a name. And it's not a story that is in black and white, it's a story that's in full color. And no matter where we are, when we enter that narrative, it impacts us, no matter what our race, our creed, our background. Enter into this conversation, I want to start off by asking a couple of questions. One, ask yourself, do the police serve you? Do the police protect you? Do you feel safe and respected during encounters with police officers? Now, how did you answer those questions? And are you having honest conversations, open conversations about policing and other systems with people who would answer those questions differently than you did? It's important for us to think about this as we continue this work together. If we're not listening to each other, how can we make sure everyone feels safe, respected, and welcome in our community? So we're here to talk about how we talk about racism and community policing. NCCJ, many of you may be familiar with us, and we're not a political organization. We're about building bridges. We're focused on helping people find common ground and communicate respectfully with one another. We have been in our nation, in our communities, experiencing a collective trauma that has been caused by the countless deaths of Black people at the hands of police. This is a regular, too often part of our narrative, and something has to change, period. We don't have all the answers. We don't know what it will take to heal the pain and solve the problem, but we are here to help us think about how we can break that cycle, how we can transform things, how we can begin to see a community where everyone can answer those questions that we started off with, perhaps in more similar fashion. So we organized this program series with the goal of helping you, our community, explore the issues and engage in respectful and effective conversations. And our hope is that you'll be able to find common ground with others and then move forward in the work of building a better community for all of us, not just some of us. At NCCJ, we believe three things. One is that change starts with a conversation. Two, conversations build community. And when people respect and know how to communicate with others who are different from them, everyone benefits. So tonight we pulled together a group of folks who do work in community and who are working to form that more perfect union that we hope and we continue to strive towards day in and day out. And we're going to talk about specifically, as it comes to reforming police and thinking about how folks are represented in the community, the work that is happening, that's being done on the community, the government, the business level, to raise awareness and address systemic racism in policing and other systems. We're going to talk about the work that needs to happen, what needs to be done, what are the plans for doing that, continuing that work, who needs to be a part of that work, and the outcomes that folks want to see. We're going to be talking about how we can hold ourselves, the community, our leaders accountable to the plans that we know, we feel can help create a more equitable society, and the steps that we as community members can take to continue to learn, inform ourselves and others, and take action to create more equitable outcomes for ourselves and our neighbors. With us this evening, and I'll ask folks to just say hello whenever I call their name. We have ChesKesha Cunningham-Dockery, who's a business owner and a chairwoman of Poplar Ridge Neighborhood Committee. We also have AJ Morgan, founding member of We the People International. Say hello.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Hey, sorry, Shakisha, you want to say hello to everyone?
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Shakisha. Sorry about that. We also have Casey Thomas, one of the steering committee members for Guilford For All. And we have Andrew Young, a founding member of the Montagnard Southeast Asian Community Disparities Research Network. Co-moderating with me is Reverend Julie Peeples. Julie will talk a little bit about her work and how she orients to this event, but I thought it would be important for us to set some expectations for how we are showing up tonight, including the audience members. This opportunity is meant to be one where each of the panelists get to share the work that they're doing within community, especially the community they find themselves in most often. And our intention is that we discuss this in such a way that we are building each other up and deciding together how we might use this space as an opportunity to connect people to the work and continue to work together. Now, as audience members, some of what our panelists share tonight might deeply align with your thoughts and feelings about what's going on around these topics, addressing systemic racism and policing. Some of the things that they share might challenge you. Now, we've asked them to show up authentically and to provide unvarnished perspectives on the issues and what the potential solutions might be to those issues. And so we remind you that we're all good people and we're in this together. We have an individual and organizational role to improving the overall well-being for our community. And we believe everyone deserves to live in a safe, welcome, and inclusive community. Now, all of us have something to offer and something to learn in order to make that happen. And so tonight, we don't have all the answers. So you may have they need to expect a lack of closure. When you are speaking, whenever you're asked to share your questions, and we ask you to think from your own perspective. None of these folks here are a monolith. They're not representing their community. They're representing themselves and the work that they do within community. And so we ask you to see them as whole people, to listen deeply and have open minds and open hearts as you do so. Okay. So I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves, the work that they do. Before I do that, I want to have Julie speak into the space and see if there's anything that you would like to add before we get started with the discussion tonight.
Thanks, Michael, and thank you all for being here this evening. I'm honored to be here, glad to be here, and I would just add to say to all of us who are listening in and participating, all of us who identify as white, to really hang in there. It's so easy for us, and I know I've done it, to either, when it gets uncomfortable, when it gets difficult, to check out or to get defensive. So I'm asking especially for those who are white, for all of us to move toward the discomfort and to do some really, really deep listening tonight. So thank you again for being here, and thank you to NCCJ for holding this.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, so to our panelists, each of you is going to have about 2-3 minutes to introduce yourselves, the work that you do that is pertinent to this forum. And, there's the last week, we saw Derek Chauvin found guilty of all counts of murder in the second degree, third degree, second degree manslaughter for the murder of George Floyd, which occurred nearly a year ago. Now, this has brought on quite a mixture of emotions and reactions for folks across our community, across the nation and the world. So I'm interested to know from your perspective how the results of this trial have impacted you and those within the communities that you work with most closely. I'll start with Casey, and then we'll go to Andrew, Shakesha, and we'll close off the circle with AJ. Casey.
Hi, I'm Casey Thomas, and thanks so much for having me and for the invite, Michael. I am a steering committee member with Guilford For All, and we are a relatively new group that got together to make a Guilford County that works better for everybody. And we want to be clear when we say Guilford For All, we are Guilford for all people to have the things that we need, like housing, like jobs that pay all the bills. We are Guilford for all people to have rights at work. We are Guilford for all people to be safe from police abuse. We are not Guilford for all opinions, but all people are welcome to organize with us. And so it can be a bit of a misnomer in that way. But we are organizing explicitly in the political arena. We are going to be running candidates. We're going to be endorsing people who are going to align with our values, or at least be able to get us some things. We have a deep belief that political office is not a love letter that we give to people because we think that they deserve it. It is a tool that we use to get things, and politicians should get us things and not tell lies. Those are two basic things. And so the way that we're doing that work is through base building. We just built a huge platform, which I'll talk about a little later. And that was through conversations with people. We talked to over 562 people. And we just took a vote and are moving towards building something really powerful here in Guilford County. And in terms of the Derek Chauvin verdict, the way that I saw that impact people who we organized with the most was about an hour of relief, was what I would say. You had a good hour, some people 2 or 3, depending on how rapidly they checked their social media. Following that, it was a bit of a reprieve and then a quick reminder that we still are Black in America.
Thank you, Casey. We'll transition to Andrew. Andrew, you can introduce yourself and the work you do.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Andrew Young, and I've been working a lot with refugee and immigrant communities in our area, probably for 10 or 12 or more years, depending upon how you count it. I've been in different parts of my career, doing education, doing technology stuff. I guess you could say that a lot of the work that I've been doing of late has been community-based stuff. I do work closely with the Montagnard Dega Association, which is probably one of the oldest refugee organizations in the area, if not in the state, and they're located right here in Greensboro. And we're also working a lot with different newcomer Asian American communities. And we'll probably get a chance to talk more about that, because most of the newcomers in our area, if we talk specifically about Asians, don't necessarily call themselves Asian American. They've only been here for a while, short while. But a lot of my work is also connecting, it's through education. So trying to build a pipeline of Asian American youth through our educational system so that they can get onto college and university. Because right now, the only way of getting out of poverty, and it's not an easy one, the only way to get out of poverty seems to be getting a halfway decent education. So anyway, that's a little bit about my own background. Usually we're supposed to say something extremely personal that connects me with somebody out there in audience world who I cannot see. Maybe I'll come back to that point later on. To the point about the Chauvin trial, I just want to bring it on back to today. So today, when I was looking at the newspaper headline, I saw that the News Record ran the headline. This is in the printed version. this was an execution. And they're talking about the young man, Andrew Brown, who was killed in Elizabeth City, which is not that far away from here. We had an activist rally today in front of City Hall. I walked over there before coming over this way to do this event, just to see what the vibe was, what was going on. And, you know, for folks out there, you know, these are sort of like the usual suspects who are out there on the street, holding signs and saying, like, look, justice for Marcus Smith. How long is it going to take? City Council is doing its thing. And then, like, again, bringing it back to reality here, the City Council did just kick off an appointed commissioner on the Zoning Commission for rude, demeaning remarks about a Black professor. And I think, to me, those things, and that one went super viral. There's a long story behind that. But, you know, these are some of the things which are informing how I'm feeling today, where I think we need to go. And in general, the sense of urgency I'm hoping that our leadership has, because let alone the Chauvin trial, let alone the 4 years of Trump, let alone the COVID thing, we're looking for some real direction here. We're looking for some real change, I believe. So you can wave your hand when I've said too much, but I think I'm going to end right here.
Thank you, Andrew. ChesKesha, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I would like to thank you guys for inviting me tonight. I am a lifelong Greensboro resident who serves in many capacities throughout my community. I am a District 1 Parks and Rec Commissioner. I serve on the board for Habitat for Humanity, and I advocate for affordable housing and funding. I'm a recent City Academy graduate, and I am currently in the police, Citizens Police Academy, which we graduate in the next week. Did I say I'm a board? I'm a newly member of the NAACP. I'm trying to figure out how that works out. I believe it's important to be at the table in all facets, and you'll hear me say that a lot. So if you see my resume, I'm at a lot of tables because I think all of our voices are important. As a mother, daughter, sister, and all that good things, this Derek Chauvin verdict, I don't want to say it doesn't mean much to me, because it means much, because, you know, he got a verdict of guilty, but I would like to see what the sentencing will be. History shows me that even with this sentencing, George Floyd may still not get justice. So it's just a wait and see issue for me. And it's traumatic and it's stressful. I remember when this happened, I was still stressing over Ahmaud Arbery as a parent. You know, my son runs daily. My husband is out there, my youngest son. So, but I think it's important for me to be out in the avenues and at the tables and in different places to voice my opinion and learn and listen attentively, so I can come back and share those things with my community.
Thank you, ChesKesha. AJ, close us up.
Hey, how are you all doing? Thank you again, Michael and NCCJ, for having me to speak. I am one of the co-founders of We the People International. And I guess I could say that our organization came about last year when the George Floyd execution happened, the murder happened. And, you know, I was the first person to hit the streets. And the reason, I guess, like, I was new to all of this. You know, I had been working in my community. I grew up, my grandfather owned a church and stuff. So, you know, I had been doing stuff like feeding the homeless with my grandfather, or like going into the community and ushering kids from the hood to church. So like I had my dabbling just doing my service of community work. But when I got into this, I came to understand that it was a certain standard of how you had to do community work, and that you needed a 501c3 and all these other different things just to be able to actually do the work and actually give it a name. And so that's where We the People came about. You know, it was a group of people, me, Zatobole Numalu, and Brandon D. And these are both my partners, left and right hand. And we have started this to basically work on the inside of our community, you know, the mental side of our community, and loving on them and actually making this fertile soil for all the changes that are to come. Because one thing that I noticed when I got into organizing work was the lack of that, you know. It's a lot of infrastructure work going on. It's little policy changes here and there, but you can't expect for this change to come about and nobody be actually in the community working with these kids that people are afraid of, or in these communities working with these ex-convicts or ex-killers or whatever the case you want to call them. They're still people. And so that is my duty and my task that I task myself with in the organization as well, is to work with those that people kind of turn a blind eye to. So I have a very intimate relationship with the homeless. I know a lot of them by name, first name. I hang out with them. I'll pick them up, bring them to my house, you know. So it's a very hands-on relationship with the work that I do at We the People, because I truly feel that we are the people, and together, united, we can't be defeated. So that's what that is about, building unity into our community. And so going into the question about the Chauvin trial and the verdict that we received, the reason why it meant so much to me, and I feel the reason why it should mean so much to the world, is because we've waited so long for a verdict like this, not just for George Floyd, but we can go all the way back to Emmett Till when he was murdered and his mom had to put his whole body on display in order to get awareness up. So to take awareness and to really give kudos to the little steps that we've taken to get here is big, because there are people out there that are mentally breaking down, physically breaking down, and they are putting their all into this work, you know, and not getting paid for it, you know. So the work that's being done is monumental. When I heard that verdict, I cried. I was very, very emotional. I was very, very happy, but I understood that the work needs to be done, but we need to celebrate. We need to celebrate the work that's being done and understanding that that work came out of unification of a community nationwide. And so, yeah, that's how I feel about that. That'll be, I'll just, you know, yeah, stop there.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, each one of you, for sharing and for participating. Some of our community members, some of you participating tonight may feel like this focus on systemic racism, police reform is new, but there have been efforts being made for generations to bring about change. And so we all have different entry points. The Chauvin trial, the murder of George Floyd that precipitated it, has brought us deeper into a movement for racial justice and atonement for harms done in the immediate and distant past. But the work of reforming this system has been ongoing well before this movement, and grateful for all of you who are so actively a part of it now. So let me ask, let's go around and just briefly, if you would, go a little bit deeper. What have you and other folks been doing in the way of raising awareness and working specifically in the Triad to address systemic racism within policing and other systems across our community? What else can you share with us about what all you've been doing? And let's go back around. Let's start with AJ, and then ChesKesha, then Andrew, and then Casey.
Well, Julie, now we live in such an age of technology and social media, you know, and so it's hard to touch people individually simultaneously with the same energy and effectiveness every single time. And so what I do is I'll study and I'll do my due diligence, and then I go to the internet and I'll make a post about a situation, and I'll make sure that people are able to get the right information. I never try to speak off of emotion. I try to speak from facts. I do try to have random conversations. Some of those conversations turn out to be some of the most intimate and some of the most effective, because you bump into a stranger who already has a perspective and they have no reason to agree with you. And so things like that come out of it. raising awareness, I guess just practicing doing the work myself. You know, if I'm doing the work myself and my platform is doing its job, then people are watching and they're being influenced and inspired to come and do the work as well. And I think that it makes people curious to want to learn and get on that journey of figuring out how we got here and how do we move forward.
Thank you, AJ. Appreciate that. ChesKesha?
I try to foster new relationships out in the community. As I said before, I'm in a lot of different positions in our community, and I try to foster new relationships. I learn, listen. I do a lot of meetings and teaching people what I learn. Before the pandemic, I tried to go to a lot of the town hall meetings. I think COVID put a lot of us back. And joining a lot of the programs that the city offers for citizens to learn. I think it's important as citizens for us to do our due diligence too, to put ourselves in those places.
Thank you. Yes, the working for racial justice, racial equity, it was hard enough before, but during a pandemic has shifted things and made things harder in many ways. Thank you for that. Andrew?
Yeah, so I think I appreciate the things that folks have said so far, especially the bit about, working hard in communities. There is not a lot of pay for this kind of work. It takes a lot of time and energy. It can be emotionally draining. So, what my reality is basically talking to a lot of folks who don't always look like me on a regular basis and just trying to see where things are going, particularly for these relatively new Asian American communities. And a little bit of background here, because I come out of the New York City area, and then down here to the south. I've been living in this area since about 1984 or so. So I've seen a lot of changes in this area when it comes to diversity and stuff. But more or less, the Asian American communities and a lot of the minority communities in this area are relatively new. So in the first bunch of years, a lot of the work just had to do with sort of navigating the system, such as it is. Like, what's what, where's where, how are things organized? I think what I see, especially with this change in the story, which has happened to mainstream audiences recently, but is now the Asian American hate story. What we see is that these new groups realizing that at least in the American world, the label is Asian American, that they could maybe be stronger together than being their own small group and stuff. And that also means working together with other folks of color, of all other backgrounds and so on, that they've never done before. Instead of spending all their time and energy trying to appeal to a primarily white audience, to get money, to get funding and all the other stuff that they need, and to stop appealing all the time to primarily a white audience and for services, for other kinds of stuff they need to maintain and build their families, communities, and so on. So I think where folks are right now is a greater awareness about some of the commonalities that all basically poor folks suffer from. And when it comes to Greensboro in this town, they all got the same police department. They've all go to the same health system. They all are subjected to the same fire department. They all have the same school system and so on and so on. And I think that is the potential of breeding a lot of commonality right there, because they're all facing the same conditions, no matter how long they've been here, whether they've been here a long time, whether they've been here just recently. The conditions are so bad that it's not the best way of doing things, but I think it's driving people together to recognize their real commonality here. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm seeing. One of the last thing I'd say about that also is about, what do I do? I try to push back as much as possible. I am on the Minimum Housing Commission, and I am a commissioner. And one of the things that we complained about that apparently made news, and I didn't realize it, is we just said we have a housing commission, which doesn't really look like most of the people who show up before the housing commission. And I'm not in charge of this, but city council made some changes. So now it looks more like the people who come before us, which is mostly District 1, District 2. So to me, it's about pushing back and pushing back as hard as I can, because we're all in a hurry. So, okay, I'm done.
Thanks, Andrew. Casey?
Yeah, so for Guilford For All, in terms of the way that we have been working to raise awareness about systemic racism and policing and other political systems and things like that, one way that we've been doing that is through listening. I can say that we have talked to and just had conversations with and heard from via survey about 562 folks in the past few months. And a lot of them, the biggest demographic were people making under 30K. We talked to a lot of Black folks. It was intentionally multiracial, multi-class, across Guilford County, not just Greensboro, but pretty heavy here because this is where most of our folks are. And we wanted to start with listening, like what's gonna make a tangible impact in your life? What things will bring you out to wanna get somebody out of office and put somebody in there who's gonna be a co-conspirator with you to get the things that you need in your life? And let's talk about what got the things you don't want in your life in there. And for a lot of people, those answers are along systemic racism. They're around how we deal with class and the spreading of resources in this country. They're around our healthcare system. They're around things that are larger than local politics, but also around things that are very deep and connected to our local politics, around housing especially, and around policing, and both around safety from violence in the community and safety from violence with the police. Those two things that we heard about were neck and neck. And that was number one from people. And so we heard from a lot of folks. And when we asked people, we didn't just do short interviews. We went and talked to people afterwards to get deeper conversations. And a lot of people shared the analysis that we need to do something systemic to address this. And it's not just about adding resources. That is wonderful. We must add resources. Housing, jobs that don't require people to break the law to make a living, because there's that. I talked to somebody who was, who organizes to try to get people to leave positions that require them to break the law to make a living. And he said that he talked to somebody about this and they said, no, I'm not going to quit my job, because if I quit my job to work at McDonald's, I'm not going to be able to make enough to eat. I'd rather keep selling drugs or whatever it was he was doing at the time than I would do this. You had to come to me to ask for a loan the other week. Why would I listen to you? And so if someone asked me to quit my day job because the nonprofit industrial complex is like evil, I would tell them to kick rocks. And so I am sure for people who are committing crimes, doing violence in our neighborhoods, that some of this is the same, and that we need to do a better job at bringing resources. But the other side of that is we need to stop over incarcerating people and making people go to prison, putting people into the criminal justice system for no good reason, and creating the situations that we're trying to fight. We also fight through elections. I know my time's about up, but like we kicked out a bunch of county commissioners last time around the issue of systemic racism in the schools. Talked to over 10,000 people over the summer, scaled up, had a huge canvassing program, door to door and phone banking. And so that's a big thing that we do as well.
Thank you all. Thank you, Casey. Thank you for those insights, right? Lots of different ways of engaging in this work. You know, at NCCJ, our in-house title for this event was "The Verdict is In, but there's still work to be done," right? You know, we spoke a moment ago about how this moment that we've all witnessed, the verdict of this trial, Derek Chauvin's trial, is perhaps something to celebrate. We're still waiting, as ChesKesha said, to see how all the chips fall. But we know that the results of this one case are not enough to transform an entire system. And so from your vantage point, and I'll start this with Andrew to kick us off, what work needs to be done? And what are some of the plans that you all that you know of that are getting this work started or continuing this work? So what work needs to be done? What are the plans for getting that work started or to continue that work? We've already seen some really great examples, right? Who needs to be a part of this work? So who's a part of it now, but who needs to be a part? And in what capacity, you know? And what are the desired outcomes of this work? We talk about dismantling systems and eliminating racism and things like this, but what does that mean? You know, what does it mean for us when that happens? What world do we see? Why stay committed to this work for the long haul? Andrew, you want to start us off?
All right. You know, you're really throwing a lot of stuff out there, and I appreciate it, and I thank you guys for inviting me. You know, the stuff that Casey's talking about, the really concrete political action, I support 100%. I support 1,000% that kind of activity, because it's got to start. It's got to start from the ground up. And I think what you're hearing from all of us is that in different ways we're working on the ground. And I've probably been doing this work a little bit longer than some of the other folks, but I've been to plenty of meetings where enough of these meetings where a few of us are looking at one another going like, oh, it's you again. Because basically we have been sort of the stand-ins, or you want to say tokens, or whatever. So, you know, we've seen the meetings before. We've seen the big event. We've seen the thing happen. I thought, for example, if our community manages to kill 5 kids in a fire, that would bring big changes. And we did 3 successive meetings, you know, community meetings in a circle and stuff. And basically not a whole lot happened. The city as leadership, they did do some things, you know, like I got to be fair about that. Changing some of the housing laws and priorities, all that kind of stuff, which is good. But the topic today is about, I know you guys aren't posing it this way, but I'll just say it this way. Fixing the police, so to speak, quote unquote, fixing the police is obviously just fixing one brick in the wall, one piece of the system and so on. And what Casey's talking about is a more systemic kind of thing. The communities I'm working with, more or less, if you want to kind of put it in, and this is not my background as a political scientist, but I'm going to take a guess at this one. For especially the refugee and immigrant newcomer communities, and specifically the Asian refugee newcomer communities among them in this area, have been pretty much below the political horizon. They're more concerned about just trying to get out of the chicken plant alive without getting sick, making ends meet, doing the usual kind of stuff of just paying the bills that you see most poor and struggling folks who've got housing problems, insurance problems, and all that other kind of stuff. But they've always sat below, if you want to say, below the political horizon, because they have not been that familiar with what is going on, who to talk to, and so on and so on. We see that slowly changing. There are some really sharp folks out there in the newcomer communities. Sharp like they know what time of day it is, and they know what the friggin' rights are. And, you know, God forbid, right, that there's another fire, there's another horrible thing that happens. But the next time that thing happens, and we know how stuff works in America and in Greensboro, it may not be so happy where the kids die, the family's not asking for anything in particular, and instead they start to assert their civil rights. You know, and that'll be a big day. That'll get our attention. But I think what it's coming down to is we're supposed to be a community which is more, with a leadership which is more than just reactionary, reacting to kids dying, reacting to, say, the Chauvin trial, and getting ahead of the curve, so to speak. Because what folks are going to say here today is pretty much what we've always said. These political divides, these racial divides, these divides have been here forever. And we know who has to do the work. So we're kind of waiting. And at that point, I'll stop.
Great. So I hear Andrew, and I agree. A lot of people have been doing this work for a long time. You know, they say good leaders make new leaders. So we have to make sure we engage with our youth as well. So I think our police are just not, they are a big part of the issue, but they're not the whole issue. I think some of our youth may not know their rights, as Andrew spoke of. We need to start with our youth, because they're the next ones coming up, you know, after us. For me, after this panel, I hope to reach out to Andrew and Casey and AJ and see how I could help them. It's about getting in where you fit in sometime, and being the helping hand, and not always trying to be the front person, but being the back person. How can I help you get your point across? What can I do? That's how I see things going forward. Because like Andrew said, we've always done this work. There's always been a divide, but as we see before, we do better. You can do better when we are together, when we do things together, because a lot of us have a lot of common issues. And who needs to be a part of this? Everyone that's interested. You can't make people do anything, but everyone that's interested, all citizens that are affected, city council, the police, the mayor, NCCJ, especially our youth. I'm a big advocate for youth because they're the next ones that are coming up behind us.
Yeah.
You should go ahead, Casey.
Thank you. That's awesome. You're one of my favorite Facebook friends I have not met in real life. So I am looking forward to that in your collaborative spirit.
See, I've met you, you just don't remember.
Oh my gosh. There we go. So yeah, in terms of what needs to happen, I feel like I've talked a lot about the political work that we're trying to do. One thing that we're working on is just our own leadership development and building a deep bench of leaders. We took about 150 something people last year through our orientation, where we talk about power, we talk about what that looks like locally, we talk about worldview and racism systemically, about class and things like that. And give people space to reflect and see where they might fit in, and to see how we need to come together to be able to solve some of these problems. We're not going to be able to solve them unless we have multiracial and cross-class solidarity that is willing to punch up and not down. That's something that we've got to do. And you got to be willing to punch. That's the thing, up. And in terms of what needs to happen, like what it looks like, what Michael said earlier, to me, that looks like if you don't need somebody who could possibly shoot you dead or put you in a cage to deal with a problem, you don't need the police to deal with it. And we need a Greensboro that reflects that. That it's not just about having the power to hold the police accountable, which we absolutely need, but we also need other resources for that. And like not just relying on police for everything. And it looks like creating jobs that allow people to have the lives that don't require people to do things that a lot of us would rather people didn't. And committing to that over just donating. A lot of our city council sometimes, well, from here anyway, it looks like there's a big focus on just donating millions of dollars to developers, whether that's in the form of infrastructure for free, whether that's in the form of like tax write-offs, like whatever. And corporations, we need that kind of investment in our people here. And not just as a side off, a giveaway, I'm better than the next guy at this, throw me a bone, like this is a central part of what I am doing on city council. And I am using this as a tool to build Greensboro's economy from the bottom up and not trickle down. Why do we accept trickle down at the local level? Like we need to stop that. So in terms of what it looks like a lot of meetings. Sorry, Andrew, it does. But ones where we're letting people talk about their experiences and building actual relationships with each other, and then getting together and doing the work. I got my canvassing shirt on. You will see us out. We had over 200 volunteers in the first summer we came out. We will have more. So yeah, that's what the work looks like.
Thank you, Casey. AJ.
I'm going to pick up right where Casey left off. One of my big partnerships is with Black Voters Matter. And economically, she was talking about the trickle down of economics and just how we get the leftovers, right? And so how we have to start at the bottom and build our way up. And so that also goes with the municipal processes and voting. And that is what it looks like. It looks like us taking our elections and our local elections just as serious as we take a global election. Why? Because this is the world we live in. Greensboro is my world. I've lived here for over 20 plus years of my life. I'm 28. I turned 29 in August. I've been here my whole life. And that's what it looks like. It looks like us taking as the people back the power that is already ours and actually raising the awareness that you have that power. As we spoke about, it's a lot of people who don't even know that they have this power. You know, they're sitting here and people don't have the time to read. You know, we're all fighting this system. So what is the bottom line? The bottom line is money all around the whole world. So it's hard to get to the root of the problem when you can't foresee the bottom line. You know, you have to go to your 9-to-5 job. You have to pick your kid up from daycare. You have to pay your bills. And so it's hard to educate yourself on different ethnic and racial issues or economic and social issues. Some people truly don't know, but we have to start locally as far as elections and then actually start to educate people in our own communities, like the ones that we live in. Just like there's a homeowner's HOA, right? So you have HOAs in different communities and you have certain rules that these communities have to go by. Some of these communities have been able to exile and redline other people from living in their communities off of these HOA rules. So these are different ways that people could actually tap into people that are living in our communities, having rules of cultural awareness. You know, so that's what it looks like. And the people that need to be involved, as Casey and everybody else has echoed on this call, it's an inclusive process. So this doesn't look like just Black people. This doesn't look like just white people or just Asian or just whatever color. This is everybody, right? We all live in a world and we all want the same thing, which is happiness and to be able to explore life at the same measure as the next man. And so I feel like it's an inclusive process that includes everybody's opinion. I mean, it includes other people's emotions, their struggles, and being able to give credit to their existence as a human being. And so that's what it looks like. Looking at our policies, you know, definitely taking a dive into the history of policing and the root of policing. You know, we have to have an accountability process where we have to be real with ourselves and understand what the root of the problem is. We can't just skip, once again, trickle down. We can't skip from the top and just go to the bottom. We have to work from the bottom. What is the root of this issue? Where did policing come from? Why was policing even invented? Okay, let's look at the evolution of policing. So it's a process of doing a due diligence of a lot of studying, which all of us have to do. And it won't just start off as 1 million people, right? It's gonna start off as 50 people. It's gonna start off as 30 people, and it grows as people's awareness and their hearts and consciousness open. But that's what it looks like. It's a process that's gonna take every single day of every single one of us doing our part with an intention to change our environment.
Thanks, AJ, and thanks all of you. And as we've said before, there are folks in our audience, folks listening in who are just tiptoeing into this and are trying to find their way. There are folks who've been at it for decades and everybody in between. And I think we all share that deep desire for something to be different now, for us to not keep spinning our wheels, but to really make substantive progress. What are the ways that you all suggest that folks learn and inform others? Some of you mentioned teaching others. How do you suggest we work together to create more equitable outcomes for ourselves and our neighbors? So what specific suggestions do you have for folks for actually digging in and getting active in this? And how might we all hold ourselves and our community and civic and business leaders, and I would throw in faith leaders too, accountable to the plans that are made and agreements that are made? So how do we engage folks in substantive transformative action, and how do we hold leaders in the community accountable? And ChesKesha, we'll start with you, and what is it, Andrew, and then AJ, and then Casey. ChesKesha, you're muted.
Apologize, sorry. You show up and you be consistent with it. You can't do anything just by going somewhere one time and just saying something. You have to be consistent. You have to be passionate. You have to offer grace, knowing that you may need that grace sometime down the line. You show up and you be consistent. You hold everybody's feet to the fire. Just you offer them the same thing that you would want back. We need to learn. I think we're losing compassion, a lot of compassion too in this time. Sorry, I'm moving my screen around trying to play to get it to come up. Yeah, you offer grace. I'm a person for grace, and you show up. You show up and be accountable for your actions when you do something that's not so great, and be able to ask for help and take criticism, because some people are not good at taking that thing, and learning and listening. I'm a big listener.
Thank you. Andrew?
I think once again, I really admire the other panelists who've been speaking and the stuff you guys are saying, because I think it's spot on. I'll try to give like one example of like how the world around here could be fairer. Way back, I used to complain that in the nonprofit world, which is heavily dependent upon like grants, right? That oftentimes the way the world turned here was certain organization wants to get a grant, you know, matches up really well. They look at maybe this refugee group, this minority community, and they go like, hey, if we partner up with you, we stand a whole lot better chance of getting the money, right? And there are a bunch of grants that work that way. So you got this big organization. They got plenty of stuff. They've got paid staff. They got people getting paid to go out there, do outreach and everything. They write the grant. And, you know, I used to complain because 90% of the money that they got went to them and to their stuff. And maybe 10%, you know, was subcontracted out or something. And that was called a partnership. So, because I'm not, excuse me, and I'm not authorized to say all the details, but Montagnard Dago Association just got one giant grant, and they don't have to share it with some other big ass organization. And their partners are other Asian American groups. And so they don't have to do that. So, you know, what's the lesson? The lesson is when you're in that kind of thing, and money talks, and when you come down to budget, you look at the budget and you look how the money's being spent, and you see how much is going to the folks who really need it, and if it's super unequal like that, then you have to yell like hell, because it's so ingrained in our city that, you know, when I say city, I mean our larger community, that's how dollars should be spent. Whether you're talking about grant stuff or anything else, it's I think AJ was talking about this trickle down thing. And, you know, enough of that. That is absolute BS. It's got to stop. And so that also means that communities have to be at the table, and like stop calling me to come to the table, and also powers that be that have resources and money, they can assist with some of the capacity building stuff that I think Casey was mentioning too. I do a lot of the capacity building stuff. I've been able to see some of these kids from all the way from middle school go to college and university, and they're already starting their careers, and they're choosing to be here in Greensboro. They could be somewhere else, but they're choosing to be here in Greensboro because, like, these young folks here, they care, and this is their home. You know, so to me, we've got plenty of money in our town. I'm just gonna say, we got plenty of money in our town. It is the way it is being spent. It is the way it's being spent. And we could knock out not all the problems, not all the social issues, which are deep, that require a lot of examination, as we're hearing today, but we can knock out a whole bunch of them and give people a whole bunch of hope as well, if some of this mentality was changed. So, you know, to me, when you talk about equity and everything, when you get past the kumbaya word stuff and you look at how the dollars are being spent, you know, the money is how, what? Casey probably knows something. This money is like how a system or a bureaucracy shows its love, right? Because if the money ain't there, you just have a lot of words, a lot of good talk and feel good stuff. So once again, I'll stop right there.
Thanks, Andrew. As someone famously said, a budget is a moral document. AJ?
I'm gonna start with, you know, since the question is, how do people learn, right? So we live in this age of this beautiful technology and being able to have everything at the tip of your fingers. So give me a moment to just say this. If there are any children in the room, please leave. But let's just stop the bullshit, okay? Let's just do that right there. Let's just go ahead and stop it like we're not all adults and know that what we need to do, okay? It's movies out here. It's documents out here. Google is right here in front of us. We all choose to look up what we look up every day. We choose to eat what we eat. We choose to wear what we wear. We choose to drive the cars that we drive. We all have choices to make. So let's stop kidding around with ourselves inside, and let's have a real check, look in the mirror. That's what I tell people. That's what I tell my friends. I'm like, yo, look in the mirror. Go in the mirror and just spend a few minutes reflecting at yourself, right? because you can't expect to go out here and learn all this information and change the world if you're not taking time to reflect on who you are as an individual and why you're even doing what you're doing in the first place. Most people are doing what they're doing for the wrong reasons. So let's evaluate our whys. That's where we start. We start at the why. We start at why we're doing this. Why are we here? Why? Let's keep asking questions. I tell people to stay curious. Don't be afraid of what you don't know about. You're only shorting yourself, when you do it that way. And that's just how I see it as far as that. As far as holding our leaders accountable, I think our leaders have to first be in our communities that are actually needing their presence to begin with. And I mean, that's in a genuine, authentic way, not coming around when it benefits, but when you don't want to be there. That's when we need you there, so that these people can connect with you. These people can see who their leadership is. How can you have an accountability process if you don't even know who you're looking at? Or if the people that are in your leadership, they don't have new cover-up pictures, or X, Y, and Z. It's little stuff that is an illusion that creates a false representation of accountability. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, because those that are holding these people accountable are the developers. They are the business owners. They are the ones who have the money and the resources. To those who have the resources, once you understand that you have millions of dollars that you understand you're not going to be able to do anything with but spend it on yourself, you live in a community and you know the people that are doing the work. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. So let's cut the BS. Let's cut through all the BS. Let's cut through all that. We're all adults. I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of educated people on this call. And I think it's going to take also people and organizations like NCCJ that are able to facilitate and bring people together like this, and have people that sit on their board that are very powerful and very influential to come together and say enough is enough. We know that we can influence, we can be influential to the change of Greensboro. We can be influential to the policies in Greensboro. We can be influential to the economic change in Greensboro. We can be, the list goes on. And so it starts with those that are already in positions of power. We have to ask those questions. Why do certain organizations get money and others don't? Now, this is not to step on any toes, but this is a conversation that has to be had. So those that are in position, if they really want to change and want to elevate the mindsets, the economic growth of their communities, they have to first start with those that are doing the work. Okay. So the accountability process starts here with those that are already creating this conversation that's going on right now. This conversation is very, very important, but it's deeper than that conversation. This conversation is how we create the accountability process, where Michael doesn't have to worry about getting pulled over and being shot as a Black man, not knowing that he's a tie to NCCJ. Andrew getting shot down as another man of culture. Julie being treated as a racist white woman, nobody not knowing that she has a sweetheart. Casey being treated differently because of how she looks. We all are being treated differently, but people don't know our hearts. So people like NCCJ, other organizations, not just NCCJ, I'm only bringing up NCCJ because you are facilitating this conversation, and you guys, that's what you guys do. And so it's bigger than a conversation now. What do they say? I think it goes, money talk, bullshit walk. So that's where we at with it right now. That's where we at with it right now, because it's Black people dying all the time, all around the world, and the conversations is enough. That I don't want to talk no more. We can educate you, you know what you need to do, but the talking is enough. It's time for action. Okay, it's time for action. And I think that people understand this. No, they overstand this, that this is a necessity and this has to come now. I'll stop there.
Thank you, AJ. And before we move into the questions, Casey, you get the last word of this section.
Oh boy. Well, I have very specific steps for people to take. So I am going to drop into the chat a link where if you would like to sign up for a one-on-one with someone from Guilford For All, if you are interested in learning more about getting involved with what we're doing, you want to organize with a group of folks that is just as open and welcoming and people focused with each other, and focused on the idea that we will not throw each other away, because that's a big part of policing culture, right? Like throwing people away. We will not do that with each other. We will grow together. We will set firm boundaries when we need to, but we will certainly grow together and be welcoming, and is equal parts that, and with institutions that are hurting our folks and people who are using those institutions to hurt our folks and aren't interested in being in a co-governing relationship with their communities and trying to advance the things that will work, or kind of mess around and find out about it. We're spicy. We're both and so if you are interested in doing that, if you like canvassing, if you are like, I don't know what I would contribute, but this reflects my values and I know we need to do something different, then you are certainly welcome to get involved. And I will not take up too much more of your time, because y'all are going to be asking some questions, as I understand it.
Yes, thank you all so very much. Maria Perdomo, our program manager, is going to begin us with our Q&A portion. Thank you, Maria. Lots of great questions have come through from the audience, and we'll give folks an opportunity to share their insights on these questions. So, go ahead, Maria.
Hi everyone, thanks for being here. I'm going to start off with one that has two parts to it. So this one is, some people might label you as anti-police because you believe in supporting police reform / holding law enforcement accountable. What would you say to that? And then the second piece is, what does reimagined policing look like and mean to you?
Are we just jumping in there?
Yeah, just as the spirit moves you.
Well, all right, well, shoot, let's move then, let's boogie, baby. All right, so back to the rooting of policing, right? So Greensboro Police Department was created formally July 11th, 1889, right? So when we were created as peace officers, okay? So it's the little things like going back into our history, with policing. You know, I know people could think, they can be like, oh, you people are so anti-police. I'm not anti-police, okay? Like the protests that I do in the streets, you shutting down stuff, these are my brothers in arms, honestly. I don't wear a badge, but you know, I'm protecting people just like they are. So we work hand in hand, regardless of what the public wants to think. You know, I work hand in hand with public officials. You know, I love these people. These are people trying to provide for their families. These are people, I have an aunt that's a police officer. So it's not about that. It's about the overall global viewpoint on policing. You know, so here in Greensboro, just looking at the root of where our policing is, you know, we were peace officers. You know, this is on our Greensboro website. You know, you can look it up, the history of our policing. You can look up when our crime rate was the lowest. That was in 1984 and in 2010 or 2014. And there were two specific things that were going on in both of those time frames that were key things that made that crime rate low. So in 84, it was, let me see, it was the Pride program, I think it was. Yeah, I had to look at it. Yeah, it's the Pride program. And that program was evaluated to look at the physical and well-being of officers and other specific programs for improving both their health and lifestyles. So, you know, what does that tell you? When our police officers are happy and people are checking on them to make sure that they're mentally okay, they do their jobs better. So let's look at how often our police officers are being evaluated. This is not like we want police reform. We want their lives to be better. It's a way for us to take away from where we're spending certain money and reallocate funds to where they could be spent better. I'll just go there because I could go. So I'm stop there.
Thank you, brother. Need some space. Anybody else want to chime into this question?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to be anti-police to want police reform. I'm a homeowner. I'm a mom. I'm of Black children. I'm a taxpayer. I want to go out in the neighborhood and feel safe. And And I think there are good and bad police. I have a sign in my front yard right now that says, I support police, the Greensboro Police Department. Now, last week I changed it and put good police because I think there is a difference. I really believe that there is a difference. That doesn't make you anti-police, that makes you have common sense. I think we need to start, I'm really for this George Floyd policing bill that they're trying to pass. I hope they pass, and I hope all police departments take it on. But I don't think that makes you anti-police to want them to be accountable for their actions in the community and otherwise. To me, that's just common sense.
I think I don't want to get sucked into the way a lot of so-called arguments go nowadays, which is either it's this or that. Either you're pro-police or you're anti-police. I think that's a pretty fruitless kind of way of looking at things. I think all of us are advocating for different kinds of changes that should happen. The concrete example I'll give is it took 2 long years before the family of Trudy Thibault got to see the police body cam video of her shot to death by, within seconds of the Greensboro police arriving on the scene. It was in 2014. The body cam thing is supposed to be like to improve policing, right? So we can't, this whole stuff about can't see the body cam stuff, we're seeing that in Elizabeth City and so on. You can go on and on and on about this stuff, but people can look at, well, how is this money being spent? How are these decisions being made? What are the results? Is this stuff really working? There's plenty of legit concerns. I think when I hear these arguments, people are just, in many of these discussions that we're having, they don't like criticism. And I'm not talking about the police, I'm talking about people in general. They don't like criticism. They don't like to basically take something apart and see how it's put together. So if that's kind of like the thing, are you pro-police or anti-police? And by the way, like, I didn't hear anybody say anything like until this point about being anti-police. So I guess the question is sort of a general question, because none of us were saying that I heard of, we are anti-police or something like that. And then disclosure thing, yeah, my dad was a federal narcotics agent in the 1950s. He was one of 2 Asian American agents going around busting people for drugs. So, it goes in my family.
Yeah. I would flip that question around on them and say, are the police anti-us? Because I do not, I put this in a polite way. I can't imagine knowing that a group of people disproportionately murders your people and then asking, are you anti this group of folks? I can't imagine knowing that it's a profession that the FBI has said has been infiltrated by Nazis, like actual Nazis are strategically lining up to get into law enforcement at all levels. And like, this is the thing that we're seeing, right? And so like, I can't imagine asking that question of somebody. But what I would say is that in terms of what we want to see happen, we're looking for things that actually don't put the police in more contact with people. There's a lot of question about good police, good cops and bad cops and whatnot. I want to be able to know that if I run into a complete jerk on any given day, I don't just want to deal with like your best apples. I want your most rotten apples on the street to absolutely have to handle me with care and respect, for me to have no fear, for my life or my safety or dignity because I know that that pension's at stake. That's one way that you can look at that. And so I think that kind of accountability is critical to us being able to have any kind of real relationships with police. There's often this discussion about that frames policing as you would with a neighbor that you disagree with, that like, oh, it's about us building a relationship with them. We need to understand each other better. And yeah, sure, like that might help, but also them not being able to murder you with impunity would probably be a great foundation upon which to start that conversation. And so for me, it's about have accountability first. Don't do this business where the city is preparing to send a bunch of police officers into our neighborhoods to stop people, traffic stops, which really makes the vote against written consent last year look very much like a conspiracy to be able to use this traffic stop method without getting pushback from people about their rights and to be able to shake people down with more ease, which I don't know that that's going to stop violent crime, but it's going to put more people in contact with the police and probably going to put more people into the criminal justice system. And when they come out and are locked out of jobs, will probably be locked back up again. So there's that cycle. But whether we're anti-police or pro-police or whatever, I think the important thing is what direction do we want to move in together?
Thank you all for those thoughtful responses. I think we have time for one more. So how do we get more of our community to care about policing issues when from their lived experience, this isn't an important issue?
You don't. That's a simple answer. You don't. You can't ask somebody, we spoke about this earlier in the conversation. You can't ask for people to care about infrastructure problems when they can't get past the getting out of the bed problems, the dental problems, the family issues. I won't mention my friend's name, but I'm gonna give you a personal situation of somebody that's close to me. It's a burden that I have to carry. That's not simple, but it's a problem. It has nothing to do with government or anything. He has 2 sons being molested by his 2 cousins at 11 and 12 years old. Now, that's what you call a conflict, okay? He has a conflict. What are you supposed to do? You have your nephews molesting your sons. How can you ask these people to know who's running for a local election? How can you ask these people to know or think about reading a policy? How can you ask these people to put a smile on their faces? This is the Georgia Cheney, a homeless man that lives in Greensboro. You can look him up. Greensboro already has done an article on him, Georgia Cheney. He told me that the crop of our people are in the streets of Greensboro, the crop of our Black people, the crop of our white people, the crop of our Asian people, the cream of them are in the streets. Our people have been, he said, the system beats them in the head. And then the hospital tells them they're crazy and then they beat them in the head. And then you throw them on the streets and then they're bums and then the streets beats them in the head. People are dying. People can't get past just breathing sometimes. The anxiety of just being a human being and existing and trying to figure out your purpose. And so it's overwhelming to have to think about all of that. So I think that's the question. You don't. That's the answer. You don't.
I think it depends on the person. People who are struggling with very intense things like that, AJ, you may be right. Probably. But I think that what I've seen with Guilford For All is you have people get together and talk about their actual experiences. We had somebody come and talk about how we had a reaction to our platform from people who took the survey. And there was this working class Black man who was there, and he said that he thinks everyone should pull themselves up by their bootstraps. He is not for welfare. He thinks we need to get people off welfare and cut benefits and help people become self-sufficient. And that's something that he was coming from a place of love. He wanted to see people do well. And there were people there who were brave enough to speak up and say, we live on assistance. If we did not have this, we would be homeless. Is that what you want for us? And I don't know that he changed his opinion per se, but he was invested in them being okay. And so when it came to vote on what it is we're going to do collectively together, he didn't vote against things that would redistribute wealth and help this family that he had now formed a bond out with. And so I think with any issue, it's like that. And I think that with policing, like, we have to, like, from a structural standpoint, I know there are public officials on here tonight. Think about the resources you give policing, because it's not just us. Like, there's a whole propaganda machine. If the city sanitation workers had their own PR paid for by our tax dollars, they might have a step pay plan right now, but that's not what we have. So the police just got a raise. And so it's both like helping people care about the issue as organizers, but also people who are in public office should probably spend some time diverting resources and their energy to help carry that narrative in ways that are helpful.
ChesKesha, Andrew, you don't have to, but if you'd like to add your thoughts on this question, maybe we might have time to get one more in.
I'm just sitting here thinking, like, how am I going to make somebody care about something that they don't care about? I could focus my energy onto somebody, and this is maybe sad, on somebody who is passionate and ready, and I can come back to them. But if you don't truly care about it and it's not what you want to do or where your focus is at that time, how can I make it matter to you?
I think I think that you know, making people care about something, as we're all, you know, we know that's not possible. But we all can see how the economics are going. We have a shrinking middle class. We have young people going into tens of thousands of dollars in debt just to get an education, right? It's not that far away for anybody who says, well, I just don't really care that much about police issues, because at some point it's going to catch up to you. And I don't care what socioeconomic, whatever you're in, maybe if you're in that 1%, maybe you're in that 10%, but, you know, most of us know that Greensboro is not Durham, it's not Raleigh. We don't make that kind of money. What was it? Apple's going to Raleigh. Well, good for them, because nobody who's regular and normal is going to be able to afford to live there. I mean, the housing costs are already super high, and it's going to get worse. So, you know, eventually people are going to wind up caring, and it's going to bite them, and it's going to either bite them in the ass really hard because it's going to be one of their family members, right? Somebody they love, a neighbor, a friend, whatever, you know, the usual thing, somebody they go to church with, and they find out, like, wow, that's what happened to them. And I don't think it's a specifically police thing, as we're all saying. We're looking at the way in which our local governments are put together, the kind of services they can or cannot provide, or are unwilling to change to provide, and where we really are in terms of what our communities need. So another way of looking at it, if you want to be like rational and everything, is just to say, like, let's look at what the real needs are of everyday folks, and let's see if things like the police department, social services, mental health, whatever, how those align to the actual needs of people right now in 2021. And I think most people will see that there's some disconnects. whether that means defund, change, do something different, but you get into the thing of surely we have enough imagination to consider how things could be in a different way. It should not take the Trudy Thibault family 2 years to finally see her shot and killed within seconds. And I understand the Brown family got to see 20 seconds of their loved one being killed. You know, whatever you want to call that, there's something wrong at the system when it happens like that. And if it takes convincing somebody that there's something wrong with the system, I would agree with everyone else. You know, that you cannot make people do that. But I think it's scary enough to know that, like, it's out there, and the kind of changes we need are really pressing at this point. There is an urgency to see some big social changes.
You know, a lot of people do not, excuse me for interrupting, but a lot of people do not get involved until it affects them, until it affects your person, your pocket, someone in your family, somebody. A lot of people don't get involved. They just let it go by. They see it, but they will never get involved until it actually affects them. That's my, you know, synopsis of it.
No, that's the truth. That's the truth. And I mean, it's changing though, but it's a little bit at a time, you know, a little bit at a time.
So thank you. Thank you all. Thank you folks in our audience who have been here with us and hearing the thoughts and ideas and the work that these folks and the folks that they are connected to are doing. I appreciate Andrew's point earlier, is that oftentimes we have meetings like this and we see the same usual suspects, you know, but there are people that they're connected to who are doing work perhaps right now that are part of this conversation. And so I encourage you to think, as I think has come through in this this forum, is what responsibility do we have in this? I challenge you to think about how are you connected to this? You know, 6 degrees of separation. At some point, as Andrew said, right? At some point, we're connected to this. It may not be this particular brick in the wall, it may not be this particular thread of the web, but those threads are connected. So if you tug one, you're tugging them all. So how might this conversation between these folks who are deeply invested in community, how might it be informing the work that you feel that you need to be doing in the community to shift your perspective, learn more, inform others? Julie, would you like to say anything before we sign off for the evening?
Just to thank you all again. And I know that I have learned from all of you and appreciate your honesty and your perspectives, and to encourage folks to get involved, to get over whatever hesitancy you've got, to dig in, to ask questions, to stay curious, and to show up, as ChesKesha said. So thank you all very, very much.
I encourage you all to join us again on Thursday from 6 to 7:30, where Greensboro Police Chief Brian James and Mayor Nancy Vaughn are going to have some time to share back with the folks here who brought up some really important and I think timely responses to what's going on in this movement. How do we move forward? How do we continue the momentum? How do we build from the bottom up? So join us, register on our website. If there's anything, thank you all so much for your time, and continue working together for a tomorrow that we all can, there will be less than a dream, but a reality. So thank you.